have Conor Walton here and lovely Grania, his muse, we've decided. And I'm especially delighted to have Susan O'Keefe, Director of Mid Society and the Highbridge Gallery, to be here to do the official opening address. I'm going to get out there now and you do it. So thank you.
Thank you, Martina. It's always a pleasure to be here at the Hamilton Gallery. It's such a lovely, lovely space. And the sun has decided, despite its reluctance apparently all week, it was going to fade away today. It's actually come out, Conor, for you. So that's a good thing. I think it's interesting to note that Jack Butler Yeats never allowed a single person into his studio. It was his, his own space. The door was shut, and not even his wife, Mary Cotton Yeats, who was always called Cotty, was allowed in to see the work in progress. And we've just this moment been talking about the QR codes that you'll find for each of the works here. And the QR code allows you to see some of the process of the creation of these works. So how time has moved on, and artists too have moved on, and it's a lovely way to be able to share the work and to be able to see a little bit more behind the work and behind the creation of the work in a much better fashion than I could ever even attempt to describe. So those of you who enjoy the QR code moment, that's all you have to do is just put your camera up and follow the QR code, and it will show you the short video that Conor has made, possibly with Grandma's assistance, I don't know. No. Oh no. To allow you to see some of the process, because what a glorious exhibition this is, and why wouldn't you want to see more of it? So that is my first experience of QR codes here in Sligo at an exhibition. So well done, Martina. I don't think you have.
No, I have very little to do with technology.
No, well, that's right. So I was lucky enough to be able to come yesterday and see the work just by myself, and that's always a real pleasure. You can just sit and think about the work. And I have to say, I woke up this morning and I was still thinking about the images that I'd seen. They're so striking. They're so you're engaged in a heartbeat with the work, and that's rare. Sometimes at an exhibition, maybe only one or two images stay with you. But I found my head thinking about almost all of the images in the room, and thinking about the depth of each of the works themselves. They're certainly not pretty pictures at all, in the sense of this is lovely and I can sit and enjoy it. They are the ultimate of thought-provoking pieces, and of course many, many influences in Conor's life: philosophy, art history, economics, history, life, the universe, and of course your own landscape where you're living now in Wicklow. I think you were saying that you love to go out and just walk in the wilderness. But there's something also quite dark in some of these works, and even in the more simple ones with the oranges in the bag and the things wrapped, there's that feeling of, well, are they wrapped to keep them safe? Are they wrapped to lengthen their lives? Are they wrapped in what happens to the wrapping? And to me it's kind of like, we used to have still life, and still lives were what everybody painted. They did not paint them in plastic bags and plastic cartons, because back then those things did not exist. Whereas now, that's the interference I see in those pictures. So while they're very beautifully painted, for me it's like saying, be careful now, we've entered well and truly the age of plastic, and how it is dominating even the very simple things in our lives, including a still life. The one at the end, the painting at the end, when the fat lady sings, I think as you arrive through the space, it will stop you. It will halt you in your pace, because it is so dramatic. And it's dramatic in the delivery of the work, but it's also dramatic when you think of the true expression of the fat lady sings, because of course, like most things in life, those expressions get abbreviated somewhere along the track. And it comes originally from Wagner's The Ring, and of course the Ring is all about the end of the world, the collapse of the universe. And Brunhild was the fat lady, or a large woman, singing the last, you know this of course, singing the last of the opera. And it's the opera is not over till the fat lady sings. It was the original version. But the American sports commentators along the way took the words the opera out, because of course they were not talking about opera, they were talking about baseball and football. And so it just became, it's not over till the fat lady sings. But as you look at that work, you can see a real kind of fear on the faces of those looking up at the woman. And of course they were in fear, because of course in the original story it was the beginning of the end of that world. So it's I find that really interesting, because you're drawn into it immediately, and even if you don't know the story at all, there's some sense of instability and worry and fear among the faces. And I really am very engaged with that piece. So I think you will be too. And of course, there is a work called The Second Coming, and of course famously William Butler Yeats's The Second Coming, which unfortunately came around in 2016 and has come round again, at that idea of heralding a kind of doom. What rough beast its hour come at last slouches towards Bethlehem. And in this work here, which is just there, right directly in front of Conor, there are many forms perhaps. I'm going to ask Conor in a moment, but having looked at it, there are many forms of the Second Coming, it would appear. You know, you can have Superman, or you can have the Joker, or you can have the animals, or you can have the dinosaurs, and then of course there's Christ and Joseph and Mary in their more familiar tableau. So it's not the Second Coming as in the original just straight Yeats piece. You've taken it into another realm. And again, I think there's so much food for thought to just stand and look. And I love that in an exhibition. I love coming in and just having to spend time and wanting, more importantly, to spend the time with the work. So I think you have delivered something lovely and intriguing and dark and light in the work, and I think that everybody will really enjoy what you've presented here today. And I formally declare the exhibition open for you all to enjoy. And perhaps you might do us the favour of perhaps sharing, because I know that you studied art history and art, but perhaps because it is Yeats, and that's my other hat in life, is what for you is the Second Coming here, or is it utterly divorced from Yeats? It's a mere coincidence. I kind of doubt that, but maybe it is.
No, it's not divorced. I was thinking of Yeats. I started trying to set up the composition for this picture about a year ago or more, and I thought of it previously. I was actually thinking of Gaza and Palestine and the sort of the disaster and genocide going on there as, you know, I suppose relevant to the, you know, the notion of the, you know, the apocalypse. You know, you've got a lot of you've got people on the far right in America who it seems are deliberately trying to generate, you know, the political circumstances for the, you know, the Second Coming in, you know, Palestine, and that was one of the things that I was thinking of, and I wanted to put, you know, Israeli jets flying overhead, and the picture just sort of evolved. And more things went in, and then Trump got re-elected, and I suppose Trump turned into the infant. Once he went in, well, I couldn't put the cow, the donkey in the ass, so it was like, you know, so I put a pig in the shape of ox and dinosaur, and so it's, you know, one thing leads to another. But obviously some things are going rather wrong in the world, and that is what the picture is, I suppose, designed to evoke. the feeling of and the sense of evil in the world, I suppose. Like you've got the three wise monkeys, and that sense of where we're aware of evil in the world, and also not being able to do a lot about it. So Superman is there. He's sort of the impotent superhero, you know. He represents the sort of the frustrated, righteous do-gooder who almost has to turn his back on the scene in frustration. And
But could it be argued that there's a hint of optimism by including him, that perhaps because he's about to leave the frame, so to speak, there's a possibility that he will turn around and be re-engaged and rescue? I mean, I'm just posing.
You could argue, but for me, he more represents the sense of, you know, like we're all, you know, I think a lot of us will have experienced, you know, that feeling of just not being able to face looking at the news and not being able to want to click on the story about the latest disaster and whatever else, and just even though you feel like you should know, you know, and you want to be informed, that you actually can't deal with it, also because you can't do anything about it, and the situation of caring, you know, caring about things which you can't control is one of these things. Like, it makes us human, you know. We caring about things makes us human, and caring about things that you can't even do anything about. That's what he stands for me.
So my little bit of optimism, ladies and gentlemen, parked over here. It's all right, you were the artist. And this, I think, I find really just intriguing. It's the pyramid.
Yes.
The pyramid. So
the painting's the modern way to build a pyramid.
Which I love, because certainly whenever, I've never had the pleasure of seeing the pyramids in real life, but certainly every time I contemplate them, even in a photograph or on television, I just wonder at the capacity of people to have done that so many years ago. So maybe just give us a little thought about the modern way to create a pyramid.
Well, it's turned upside down. You know, it's like, well, it's not very stable, and you know, in finance and things like that, you speak of pyramid schemes and things that are obviously, again, stand for you know, things run amok, fraud, and not very stable, and it's sort of you know, taking on that idea sort of humorously, I suppose. But I wanted this sense of great depth, you know, where you'd have like these sort of rats in the foreground and would go off into the distance. And I even got, like, I bought, you can buy freeze-dried rats now, and I bought some rats from a company in New York, and they actually posed the rats for me. You could actually get them placed in position.
Are you okay,
So I had, you know, I had the rats. It was actually quite funny, because when I was painting it, you know, as a joke, you know, for social media, whenever I put one of the rats on my shoulder, you know, and I was, you know, looking at this, and I posted a photograph, and then on Instagram, all the rat lovers turned out, rats are amazing pets, and I love rats. And all the rat lovers sort of poured in, and I couldn't tell them that it was a piece of rat, that I killed the rat, you know. Yeah, but it was, I did actually, you know, I like to paint what I see as far as I can. So let's say with the Second Coming, that was all set up. You know, I had my toy dinosaurs and my nativity figures, and the whole thing was little, you know, set up on a tableau, even with the jets sort of hanging from wires behind.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm interested then in the idea that you're actually, as I mentioned at the beginning, the QR codes allowing people to see some of the process, and you're very happy to share the the creation of your work in that way and allowing people to see the
Yeah,
tablet.
I've become a sort of, I think of myself now, I'm a performance artist. I basically, I have a video, a time-lapse video running in my studio almost all the time I'm painting now. And so everything is recorded, and it's sort of, there are two sort of positives for me, sort of independent of just showing. One is that it puts me on good behavior, so I can't cheat, I can't trace, I have to do everything right, you know, I have to sort of do my, bam, this is how you do it, you know, I can't sort of have an off day, I have to sort of think, right, the camera is going to show everything that I'm doing, and the other then is I can review my process a little bit like the way athletes, you know, watch videos of themselves and oh, that's where it went wrong, or that's where I lost focus in the process.
Wow.
So it can be interesting that way, particularly, you know, sometimes I do, you know, I'll do one bread painting after another, one butter painting after another, and then there's a comparison. It's like, well, you know, where did the process, you know, go right or wrong in each of these. So, but then yeah, it becomes like I then put the video out, and it's just like a little sort of certificate of authenticity for the painting. You know, that this is what I did, and this is how it happened.
Okay. Well, now we know why Jack didn't let anyone in. He didn't want to be looking at his own work again and self-correcting. You know, so everybody works differently, and that's the joy of it. So I hope that at least listening to Conor talking about some of the works here will also allow you to engage further with the work. And if I might just in conclusion say this morning on a separate note that we are all very sad at the loss of Joan Gallagher, who was a wonderful woman, as was Lionel, her husband, and they would have graced these rooms on many occasions. And Joan shared her birthday with William Butler Yeats on June the 13th, and she would come down to the building and have birthday cake with us sometimes. So a funeral is just another goodbye. So I just wanted to say we remember her with great love and affection, and I know there are many people in the room who would have known Joan and Lionel very well. So from the Hamilton Gallery, perhaps, to say goodbye to Joan. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming, and I know especially some of you are heading on to funeral, and it sort of put you under pressure to get here. Appreciate you coming to the opening. So thank you very much.
Thank you.